Hi, I'm Daniel from the Southwest Florida Real Estate Channel. We're going to be taking a look at some different types of insurance this morning, and we're going to start with title insurance. If you think of insurance, most people are most familiar with types of insurance that are not related to real estate. So if we take a look at just, a health insurance policy, when you think about health insurance, what happens is with a health insurance policy is what they're going to do is they're going to charge you for something that may happen in the future. In other words, I might break my arm tomorrow, and so I've got to keep paying. What happens is with your health insurance policy is you're making a monthly payment. So if you just think about it like the future never arrives, and so I've got to continue to pay. And the thing that they do is in the policy they list the coverage. In other words, what we're doing is we're saying if I break my arm tomorrow, I'm paying for future coverage in case I break my arm or I get sick or I get cancer or something tomorrow, and you make a monthly payment and then it lists the coverage. In other words, if it's not listed there in the policy, you're not covered. Title insurance is the exact opposite. With title insurance, what happens is we're purchasing a protection for the unknown past. And now in the state of Florida, what happens is the past goes back 30 years. So different title insurance policies will give you different coverage. But if you look at an abstract of title, abstracts will go back up to about 30 years in the state of Florida. So Florida became the state of Florida in 1846. And so you may have a property that's got transactions that occurred all the way back then. But what happens is most of the coverage that you need is for within the last 30 years. In other words, if somebody comes in and proclaims an interest in a property from 45 or 50 years ago, for the most part, if we're talking residential and in most parts of the states and for most properties, they're not really going to be able to make a claim because it's more than 30 years old. And so what we're doing is protecting the unknown past up to 30 years ago. And then think of it like this: the past only happened once, and so you're only going to pay once. And what occurs is that you're going to have a title company, and that title company is going to ask you to bring an insurance binder. In other words, you're going to have to prove before you've got a settlement. And by the way, when I say title company, in the state of Florida, there are three different types of parties that can conduct a closing. They are a real estate broker, a licensed title company, and an attorney's office. So any of those parties can conduct a closing. So when I say title company, I mean whoever is conducting the settlement. What they're going to do is they're going to require the insurance binder to be brought to the closing by you when you come to purchase property. And so you bring that once, and you're going to have to provide evidence of that policy at the closing. And then what you're doing, though, is you're listing exceptions. Exceptions, I've misspelled it, exception. We're going to have to pretend that word exceptions. It says exceptions. What happens is you've got two different types of exceptions. Is you've got what are called standard exceptions, and then what you've got is what are called special exceptions. So standard exceptions, what those are is there's language in the policy that's going to say these are the things that we are never going to protect you for. And so, for example, the policy is going to say questions of survey. It's going to say, anybody who could file a claim within the next 90 days. The state of Florida, what it does is it says that an individual who's got the right to record a lien against your property, they've got 90 days to do it, specifically a mechanics lien. So if somebody, improves your property, puts siding, puts a deck, puts on a roof, and they don't end up getting paid, they've got 90 days from the completion of that work in order to take action and record that down at the county. And so what the language in the title policy will say is if somebody has a claim that they've not recorded yet, they're not going to give you protection for that, which means, of course, the buyer better make sure that there's nothing like that going on. And, of course, the seller is going to have, their own issues as well. And we'll talk about that when we talk about types of deeds. But here, so you've got your standard things for which they'll never cover, and then you got your special exceptions. Special exceptions are what we call clouds on title, issues that we find related to this particular property. So the title company may do a title search and find that what we have is, sorry, I was distracted for a second because the air kicked on. But what they may find is that, for example, the taxes haven't been paid for the year. So they're going to say, we're not going to protect you for that. Those taxes have got to be paid. So things like that. So what happens then is if they're listing exceptions rather than coverage, then there must be some rule about what's covered. And the answer is things that are a matter of public record. In other words, things that would generally be brought down to the county and be recorded. So just think of it like this: long-term interest in property. So every county's got a recorder's office. State of Florida's got 67 counties. Every county has a recorder's office, and you can bring long-term interest down there and you can record it. So you can record a mechanics lien within 90 days of completion, like I said. You can record a deed, you can record a mortgage, and so you can record a long-term lease. You could record a contract for deed. You can record any signed document. And so if you think of it like this, the title insurance policy is protecting you for things that are a matter of record, in other words, either are recorded or should have been recorded, as long as they are not listed here as exceptions to coverage. So imagine they do not say anything about some mortgage that doesn't get paid off, and since that's a matter of record, you're purchasing protection for it. And just like any insurance policy, if you want to pay more for it, they're going to eliminate these exceptions and you're going to get more protections that way. So that's title insurance. There's other types of insurance that you could buy related to real estate. You could buy a homeowner's insurance policy. I'm not going to talk through that a whole lot with you because homeowner's insurance policy is generally not required. You might have to buy, flood insurance or hazard insurance related to, if there's a hurricane or something, and there are ways to go about doing that. But the bottom line related to these different insurance policies is this. These insurance policies, think of it like the golden rule. Okay, whoever's got the gold makes the rules. So if this property owner, if this purchaser that's going to be a property owner, if they've got their own cash, they don't have to buy a title insurance policy. That's entirely up to them. What they could do is just say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to assume that there's no problems with the history of this property. That's okay. People say, okay, I'm self-insured. That means nothing. Another option is you could take the abstract down to an attorney and get an opinion. So you might pay a couple $100 and get an attorney's opinion of what's going on with the title, wondering if there's any clouds, and then get a written opinion from an attorney. Problem with that is you get their opinion and that's it. There's no coverage if something gets screwed up. But if they're borrowing money, if there's a mortgage lien, they're going to be required by that lender to purchase a title insurance policy. Because that lender basically has got control of the situation related to that. And then what the title closer will do, whoever's whoever's conducting the closing, they'll make sure on behalf of the lender that you show up with a title insurance policy that matches what the lender requires.